still look at the presentation?
Yeah, it started. The recording is started.
Okay. So when we are talking about the typical geographical boundaries, so that concept was dynamic till before, you can say, 19th century, and it was automatically, you can say that the creation of the modern map is it has what led to a lot of tussles. Tussles were there previously also, but then the boundaries were more, were decided by the natural elements. Say the river used to create the boundary, or a mountain used to create the natural boundary of, say, between one region and the next. And then, of course, we had the geographic or the climatological divisions as well. However, these concepts are important when you are learning about the settlement planning, or why a particular area had a similar type of buildings or similar type of layout. And it had technology had a huge role to play into how we perceive and how we finally got into a particular pattern of settlement or particular design, building design. So in India, we are here for this particular class. For today's lecture, at least, I'm focusing more on the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent, which had links with the other major civilizations as well as settlements, or there is a term like culture is also there, so specific cultures for a very long period of time. And though you can say that we had examples of Neolithic settlements in India, often we say that these are not permanent settlements. But what is permanent? So that concept is that if a location, suppose, is having continuous habitation for a very long period of time, then we can call it as permanent. But it can be cause of, suppose if an area has a settlement for, say, over 100 of years, or we have examples, or we come to know that some area were lived by, people were there for, say, 500 years. So how can we say that it was non-permanent settlement? We can definitely say people were there, but the question arises that why were they unable to be at the same location? Because migration always is associated with a lot of risk, and so people given a choice will definitely, if they have found a place where they can live in, they will always try to stay in there until and unless the situation becomes quite absolutely opposite to habitable conditions. And these questions are very important when we are, or whenever we are looking at the settlement patterns, the settlement systems, why they work, and more importantly, why they failed, and what we can learn from them, so that we are able to take care of our areas in a more sustainable fashion. So through and through, you can say, the architecture, more so than the settlement pattern, definitely had its impact on the person who was, say, the patron or the patrons. So that was the part, whether the country was in a political stability, whether the country was facing a lot of warfare. So additionally, it is also impacted by climatology and impacted by the overall, you can say, the trade relations as well. So there are influences of that, and we have learned about it, and we basically have reconstructed about how ancient Indian civilization or ancient Indian settlement patterns look like by looking at the archaeological remains that we have, as well as the small artifacts that we could get. As Professor Bhattacharya has already explained it to you about how we could understand the typical construction patterns of Vedic uh, say Hatmans or Vedic villages, how it happened. So gradually, because we could understand them by looking at the nearest replication of those structures as they were seen from the cave architect or rocket architecture of or Buddhist rocket architecture. So from there only we came to understand about why this particular shape evolved, from where it could come, and then we could understand that it was imitated from a wooden structure to it was imitated into a stone structure. And why this particular choice of material also, it also has a linkage with the way the trade relations existed at that time, as well as the the political or the administrative head of that particular region. So the philosophy of Indian architecture has always been more oriented towards the community. So kings' palaces were there, obviously they were important, but if you actually look at the important architectural remains or archaeological remains that we have seen, particularly from the ancient Indian period to say the classical Indian period, you can see that uh, the buildings or the structures which were catering to the public or more number of people as such were given more importance, which is starkly different from the way other civilizations or cultures, the way they evolved. So we are coming to just this is to understand the timeline in where we are going to explain Indus Valley civilization and then the subsequent civilizations or the subsequent you can say branches that were observed within the Indian subcontinent. So here the most important part is that the Ganga River Basin formation, which was again followed by the formation of the Himalayan mountain range. And we had we had our ancestors, the first humans who appeared roughly around 2 million years ago. So 40,000 years ago, if the Ganga River Basin has already formed, then at the time of Indus Valley civilization, the Ganga River Basin, though being a plain land, but yet it was densely forested. So our very concept or imagery of, say, India's geography as it is today was vastly different 5,000 years back. And definitely a lot of different if 7,000 years back. So the place where we are located in, where me and Shankuda we are located in, it was still, the deltaic region. We are very, Kharagpur is nearer to Tamrolipto, which had trade relations with the Romans. And why? How could they have trade relations with the Roman? Because at that time, Tamrolipto was navigable by ships, meaning the coastline was very much near. Where the delta, as we see now, had not really, it was not so huge. It had really been expanded. It has expanded further into south with the times. This, along with the fact that from the say the peak of last glaciation happened about 22,000 years ago, and from that time onwards our ocean level is rising continuously. So the ocean level that we see now is, or the mean sea level now is more than almost 100 meters above the mean sea level we had at about almost 12,000 years ago. And the cultivation with cultivation, actually with the discovery of cultivation, the settlement system started developing and people started actually to settle at a specific space rather than from their hunting and gathering type of lifestyle. So as Professor Bhattacharya has mentioned, if you actually look at the traditional settlement which belong to the hunting gathering system of life, those systems were circular. Even the settlements were also circular in nature. Reason was it was easier to defend, it was easier to look after. From the point that agriculture was discovered or cultivation happened, then only square plots, or you can say rectangles, and these particular shapes gained more prominence after agriculture was started. And because obviously cultivation is easier if you have a rectangular field. And so these are some of the very basic. If you actually look at the initial settlements in Africa, you can see that you can clearly understand the type of society based on by just looking at the settlement, the hutments, definitely the specific huts, as well as the settlement and how they were organized. So there also you could find almost a central area where supposedly you can say the hunting animals were kept inside, who used to help in hunting and gathering, or the main granary, or not the granary, the main area where they could have, from where they could keep a watch over the surroundings, that was there in the center. And you used to have the other settlements which were used to usually look inward towards this main area. So again, so agriculture is invented about 10,000 years ago, and from there across the world you can find out the specific cultivation of specific crop, depending on the availability, of course, of the local species. That specific cultivations were took up and started, and then around that time, around you can say almost 5,000, 7,000 years ago, you could see that settlements were picking up across the world. Particularly in before that also we have examples of Neolithic habitations in we have in Africa, in Australia, even in India, but they were again not, that was not a settlement as such. So we are coming forward to the, again, further timelines where you can understand the setting of Indus Valley with respect to the other major civilization, such as Sumerian civilization. So Sumerian civilization, then Babylonian civilization is somewhat later than Sumerian civilization, because area shifted towards the left. Babylon, the cities that were there. So we start with Ubaid, then Eridu, then Uruk, and though you are looking at a same timeline, but the area-wise it is little different. So gradually with age, as the years went on, the civilization spread, as well as later the civilization in Mesopotamia, it bifurcated into a northern part and a southern part. The northern part was Assyrians. Then again, so if you actually go and check these points up and further look at Professor Johanson's lectures, particularly for history of architecture, you can find out further details on this. So at the same time in Egypt, we were having the pre-dynastic settlements, and definitely settlements at Central East Asia, and Catalhuyuk being a Neolithic village. Again, very importantly, these were villages and not urban settlements. So urban settlement definitely meant that the production or the cultivation was, the production was of a such volume that people could actually store and have time to explore other aspects of life. So they had more time, they could store it for, they could store the grains for some time, and therefore they were able to explore other means or other facets of life, as well as having very strong trade relationships with Mesopotamia and with Egypt, because Indus Valley seals have been found in Mesopotamia and in Egypt, strengthening or emphasizing the link between these three civilizations. And we have Vedic settlements, say from almost 2000, almost 5,000 years ago. From that time we have Vedic settlements, but these settlements are very different from Indus Valley settlements as such, because Vedic settlements are typically rural or village type of settlements, as Professor Bhattacharya has explained it to you, that initially they started with a circular hutments, and then gradually with time they evolved into this you can say composition of 3 or 4 buildings together to form a larger size. And of course the application of modules with respect to how you are going to, what should be the unit of each say the unit area of, or the section area of a village or a small urban area but it happened later. So we are then going further. The settlements in India. So there are, instead of settlements, we do have Stone Age sites in India. So Stone Age is the new Stone Age is basically the Neolithic sites, and we have settlements. Particularly, we have proof of settlement in 9,000 years ago, because in Bhimbetka rock shelters we have such proof of settlement in Bhairana. And as we are having newer explorations of areas around the Indian subcontinent, we are finding out, I mean, with every passing year almost, we are finding out new artifacts. And a huge process in this is then involved as to find out the actual timeline of those areas. And so can you give me some idea about how we are able to find out the dates of these settlements?
Carbon dating, ma'am.
Yes, carbon dating certainly, but within carbon dating there are again, every process or every technology has some limitations as well. Nothing is foolproof. So if carbon dating foolproof as such, or to what extent can we say that the dating is appropriate, or we can say with almost say a 95% confidence that yes, this settlement or these objects belong to this particular area. Anyone from geology department?
Stones, trains of stones means layers of stones by excavating.
Certainly, yes, by looking at the depth and by looking at the layers of say different settlement pattern, by understanding what the base layer should look like as compared to what the other layer should look like. So that is good, but even can that see by looking at the layers we can have a broad understanding, but can we definitely say that I mean we can possibly you can give a range that this was the timeline, but even that range will be pretty huge. It is never in hundreds, right? It is, that range is usually in thousands of years. I might be wrong, so I need you to actually enlighten me. Uh, anyone from the department of from physics, from the department of geology, geophysics. So because you actually have helped a lot to you know, bring out this unique aspects.
Ma'am, if we know the script of their literature, and if like in Mahabharata there is a constellation, the description of constellations positions, so we can have write computer code for, and then by extrapolation we can find date like that, or
By
some
archaeoastronomy.
archaeoastronomy.
Yes, but archaeoastronomy is one part, but the time for which, I mean, particularly, you know, the timeline, say Bhimbetka is 9,000 years ago. Uh, do we have any you know, mention of Bhimbetka anywhere? Is there, I mean, is there any, just another, you can say, common, yes, was anybody saying anything?
Ma'am, if we got the biological structure, bodies, if in excavation, then we can have their biological structure in different ages. Means if there is gap or not.
Um, okay, closer. And may I know who was talking so that
Shubham, ma'am, Shubham.
Shubham. Thank you, Shubham. I really need students to interact. We will be having a question answer session definitely, but your inputs make this discussion more interesting. So as far as I could gather that carbon dating has a time limitation. Time limitation means if we are exploring or if we are trying to date an object which has to have some amount of, which has to be of living organism, it has to be, because in inanimate objects, carbon dating of inanimate objects is not possible. I may be wrong, but you have to, I mean, state that, or you have to give me the information, because again, as Professor Joyson has mentioned, Professor Bhattacharya has mentioned, I am a student of Indian knowledge systems along with you. I have just started a little bit earlier. That might be all. So we need to discuss, and this information flow needs to happen so that we are arriving at a collectively, better knowledge, and so that we are able to pass it on to our future generations. So carbon dating, if you are trying to date an object which is, say, of organic remains, if you're trying to date that, if that object is beyond a certain time, say if that beyond 50,000 years, then carbon dating won't work. And it has to deal with, obviously, so carbon dating can work very fine or very well if the span is, say, between, you are trying to date something which is, say, 5,000 years ago or 7,000 years ago. It will work great. As the years are increasing, then automatically the the precision, it goes down. We cannot say we cannot draw conclusions with confidence. So that goes down. The range, in order to predict something to be of a specific range, then it needs to be within, say, a measurable span, say within 7,000 years or within 5,000 years. And that is regarding carbon dating.
Somewhere I have listened that by DNA, nature of DNA chromosomes, we can have the dating by
Yes.
DNA.
Yes, definitely. So that for the DNA sequencing also you need to have adequate. So the
Ma'am, we can means
yes,
other than carbon dating, we can also date other metals present.
can
Like
we?
these paintings are made, so they must have used some substance to
Yes,
make
there's
these
a
paintings, and
yes.
in that substance there could be an element which can be dated, same as carbon dating.
Thank you, Anshul. So you were talking about the dating of the Ajanta caves, the paintings in Ajanta caves.
Also Bhimbetka caves, because in picture you can see they have made something like an animal and some human beings. They must have used some material like to make this painting, like some ink kind of stuff,
Yes.
and
So this
that
ink was usually made. Thank you, Anshul. Wonderful. I think, and we should give a big round of applause for Anshul as well as for Shubham. We need you to interact, to give your ideas, to share your ideas. That's the whole point of, again, Indian knowledge system. So look at the collective good. So again, definitely in the Bhimbetka paintings or in such paintings, the paints were made from organic matter, so we can date them. But whether metals or objects which are inanimate or which do not have organisms or some organic remains, whether they can be dated, I'm doubtful. I may be wrong. So if you have information, please share it with us. That will again help us to explore and to interpret these findings in a much better manner. So we had first, confirmed settlements around Bhimbetka, around Dhirana, and some say that the around Gulf of Khambat, there is Neolithic culture, which was dated to about 7,500 BCE. Now, some years back again, we could find out the remains of a submerged city was found near the Gulf of Kutch. It was, almost considered to be that might have been again almost similar to Dwaraka city. So I think it was found out around 2001 or 2003. I don't remember exactly. So there also people found out remains of logs or remains of trees, and they carbon dated it. But the problem is that whenever you are trying to put forward an idea based on the fact that suppose you have obtained remains of a tree or wooden remains, and if that area is near the coast, it automatically gives rise to more debate, because in those days, coastal areas will have trees. And if that area is submerged, then obviously, even if that area is not having any civilization, not having, say, an urban area, but it will definitely have remains of trees. So these debates continue, and we move on along with this information about how carbon dating works, and whether we can say with a very, very, positive confidence that yes, we are having some urban settlement here with certainty. Whether it is belonging or whether it is linked to a specific a specific mythological city, or a specific again or a specific location, it is a topic of debate, and debate is necessary, because then through that only we clear up our doubts. So from there again, we are coming to now the Indus Valley civilization. So the facts of the civilization, why it is 3,300 to 1,700 BC. This is, you can say, the agreed upon timeline. This timeline is not set in stone. It will change, because there are a lot of settlements, a lot of newest settlements that have been and that are being explored continuously. throughout the Indian subcontinent, which will be helping us to unearth about what happened roughly 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000 years back. And because we are having, if you look at the prominent cities which were belonging to the 16 Mahajanapan, as we say in Bengali, and which is you can say which evolved from the Vedic time settlements into the 16 kingdoms. So we are continuously having, we are finding that those settlements where there was previous settlements around or near to the existing urban areas, and we are continuously finding even older settlements as we are as the archaeological explorations are going on. However, let us now go into the facts about what has been found and what we can interpret from them. So the first map, or the map to the left, is basically the till this time agreed upon map of Indus Valley civilization, because it was thought to be connected by the river Indus, whose name is again, original name is Sindhu, but the Indus name was given because the Greeks couldn't pronounce S. So, as you can understand, if you look at the different settlements, you will find that some of the settlements are located pretty far away from the Indus River itself. So why this specific, how can this be possible? If you look at the area of the Indus Valley civilization, by area itself, if you look at it, then it is the entire settlement has happened, or is was existing at a huge scale, at a very large scale, and such level of simultaneous habitation is still not thought of during, say, almost 7,000 years back. It is unthinkable to have an urban settlement across such a huge area which is having similar pattern of settlement, similar pattern of, or standardized methods of measure of weights. And as I think one student was asking about this ratio or the brick sizes, I think. So the brick size was, the ratio is 4:2:1, roughly, for Indus settlements. So to keep these questions, we will be getting to the answer as we explain, as we move on through this presentation. So Indus Valley civilization actually had relationships with trade relationships with Sumerian civilization, as well as with pre-dynastic Egyptian settlements. And there are enough proof. Again, what I'm saying, this part is, there is no debate. The proofs exist and experts have agreed on it. This is, you can see site plan of Mehergarh. So Mehergarh civilization or Mehergarh settlement is dated, beyond you can say Indus Valley civilization. But ideally, if you look at the location, it is nearer, it is absolutely in the same area, in the same region. So if we have further explorations are going around at present in India, in Haryana, in Western Uttar Pradesh, and can you name some of the sites that have been found out recently in recent years?
Sinoli.
Yes, and others?
Rakhigarhi.
Rakhigarhi, yes. Thank you. Who was speaking?
Anshul.
Oh, Anshul. Thanks again, Anshul. So we are, that process is not ending. We are continuing with our explorations. And coming to the view of Mohenjo-Daro from the Great Bath. So this is, you can say, the view of the stupa almost. So we will be getting into that. So this is the, if you look at the settlement, there is a height difference in the way different areas were planned. And so this is again the, you can say, agreed on timeline, that initially they had village communities, which gradually, as the production was improving, they began to coalesce and they began to form urbanized, more number of settlements together, having a more number of, say, trade relations. Because if you actually ask, how can we say an area is urbanized and area is a village? So the students from architecture background or the students from planning background can answer this, because we have a definition, but do anyone else know about how can we say an area is urban and an area is rural? What are the factors that we consider? Anyone?
Ma'am,
Like administrative
factors of-
buildings and related activities may be considered as urban.
Definitely.
factors of economy and connectivity and trade are primary in terms of urbanization.
Yes, thank you, Zaren. And did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Again, a round of applause for Zaren and for Rahul. So, yes, when you can say certainly that an area is having, say, numerous types of buildings. Numerous types of buildings automatically mean that numerous types of activities are going on. So there, if you actually get this hierarchy or this variation in settlement, then you can certainly say that this was a urban settlement. And also the number is very important. Suppose in one area you are having 5 buildings, and in one area you are having 500 buildings. Then the area which is having 500 buildings is an urban settlement. So we define urban areas nowadays, at least in India, we define it with respect to population. So there has to be a minimum population, there has to be a minimum population density, and again, as Zaren said, as Rahul said, that the occupation or the different, as I mentioned, there are different facets of life apart from agriculture. When you have a certain proof that yes, people are engaged in trade or people are involved in other secondary or tertiary sectors of economy are there, then you can certainly say it is an urban settlement. And we could understand that Indus Valley or the settlements in Indus Valley, near Indus Valley, were of urban nature because of the scale, the number of buildings or the units that were obtained, and the variation that was obtained. The seals, the Indus Valley seals, I think Professor Sen has explained about them in the last 3 classes. So the existence of seals is also often interpreted as they were a type of, identification. They were made for identification or for information gathering or for as records purposes also. They could function as that. And the existence of okay, we will be explaining that again. This is a rough map of Mohenjo-daro, and this rough map, look at this rough map, because this is again at a much larger scale. I will be showing you the detailed maps, particularly of the northern this northern settlement as well as the residential area in later slides. So what was important is that you can, if you look at the person, you can identify the scale. This is basically the drain in that was found in Harappa, as well as the public well that was found in Harappa. And by looking at the brick sizes, and if you look at the construction, if you look at the way the corners were constructed, and knowing that it was basically the new stone age when this settlement was built, iron was still not there. So you can identify the technological advancement and the creativity of the people at that age to actually have produced an urban settlement of this scale. So historically speaking, all over the world, you can find a huge amount of, you can find the standardization, and you can actually see evolvement of architectural styles. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So historically, if you are actually able to see that or actually able to study that an architectural style is evolving around the ages for a particular civilization, that means that is a time of political stability. Otherwise, suppose a person is coming, an emperor is coming, and say he wants building a new palace to be developed, and before the palace is actually constructed, that empire has diminished through war or for other reasons, and a new emperor comes, and he or she again starts a new type of building construction based on their belief, because at that time, and if you at least for India, if you look at the way, the state religion, the position of state religion did change a number of times for a number of kingdoms as such. So for that, in those periods where there is a lot of political squabble, you won't be able to study the evolvement of a single type of architecture. That can only happen if there is a relative, longer periods of political stability. So there was a huge, a very long, almost 3,000 years of stability in Indus Valley civilization, and suddenly it changed. The earlier theory was that the Aryans came, they conquered these peace-loving people, and they made inroads into India. And that is why this very sudden, change between Indus Valley, which was an urban civilization, urban settlement, and then the immediate next settlement that we can interpret is that of small village hattons. And the time period as such, it is huge, because at the time when the 16 Mahajan Pads is evolving, it is roughly about 800 BCE, and the time of decline of Indus Valley civilization is, say, 1700 BC or 1500 BCE. So what happened for 700 years? Nothing happened. Just give it a thought, because these will be further explained. So actually, how many of you have heard of or have actually studied about this Aryan innovation theory while in school? We have all heard about Indus Valley civilization. This is again common topic that I'm talking about. So you can raise your hand so I can understand in teams. How many have actually read about this theory? I did, I know. Okay, okay. So only about 6 have read about this theory. I thought majority will be reading about this theory only. Because if you have read about other theories, then this is no longer a surprise. And I was thinking I will be surprising you, because Professor Sen has definitely given you and spoken about this, but I was going to explore about this theory. Whether it is valid Okay, good.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
I heard,
Yes.
yeah, ma'am. I've heard like a newsprint, like there was written that in the survey of Rakhi Gray, the DNA study tells there was no Aryan invasion theory, that it is invalid.
Yes, thank you so much. So a very big round of applause to the students who have actually, who are interacting. So thank you for your,
Recently, I also read one
yes.
article, and in that they were telling that the Indus people were Dravidian peoples, and they spoke some Dravidian language. So they were trying to establish the fact that Aryan invasion did happen because Indus people, which were non-Vedic, were Dravidian. So I don't know how they make this up, but there is one new article doing rounds these days in news.
Okay, is this Anshul who
Yes,
was
ma'am.
speaking? Okay, Anshul, good.
Ma'am, also I have one question, ma'am. The people of Tamil Nadu and the rest of Indian people, the
Huh.
people of Tamil Nadu consider themselves as Dravidian and other as some of Aryan. So there is a that difference, and this is also political fight. So what is the correct picture, ma'am? I
Okay,
want to know about it.
okay. Can I know the name?
Ma'am, Shubham, ma'am.
Oh, Shubham. Thank you, Shubham, for asking this question. But first of all, I first should give a disclaimer. I do not like to be in midst of fights. I am a peace-loving person. So there, instead of going into this fight, but let's just say that Dravidian culture predates what we know as Aryan culture. There are proofs to that, but your question, if I try to just address your question in details, it will take minimum of, it's a another course itself, because there are so many things that needs to be discussed. So I cannot say anything else in a single word, but I will definitely say Dravidian culture is predating what we commonly known as Aryan culture. Okay.
Ma'am, then why, since Britishers' time that we have found this Mohenjo-daro and Harappan, why India is not eager to do similar type of excavations and study in, let us say, Odisha or Tamil Nadu? Why are we not doing?
Who's speaking again?
Ma'am, Anshul.
Okay. Anshul, how do we know that India is not doing excavation? I have just mentioned go to Archaeological Survey of India site.
Ma'am, Indian government has stopped excavation at Tamil Nadu sites.
They
So
have,
that's why.
if they have stopped excavation, there are a lot of, again, excavation. Do you think that Tamil Nadu sites, in all Tamil Nadu sites, excavation is stopped suddenly? Is that so? No. I mean, it is not, again, anything is, cannot be explained, or things cannot be explained in one lines, and you cannot interpret, uh, or you cannot interpret the activities of ASI within a state of, India. I mean, India is huge. How do we know that all excavations are stopped? Do not make such generalized interpretation. So if you want to actually know about the current activities, you can go to the website. You can look at the different work that is being happening throughout India. So there are a lot of reason why work in a certain area is stopped. It might be because that area is now under, say, it is having rainy season, so works cannot go on. Or it can be because some administrative reason it is stopped for, say, a few months or a few years, but it will again start. So there are a lot of reasons why works get stopped, right? So do not, whenever we are making this very simplified interpretations from such things, it usually is wrong. So correct answer is never that simple, and correct answer has so many different aspects that we need to address. Okay,
Ma'am,
I
ma'am,
hope, yes.
like one of the like said like excavation in Tamil Nadu stop. Like I have read about Keladi in Madurai. Like excavation is going on the sixth phase. There was some jar and all those things. I have read all those things, and some sea harbor excavation will go on from 1 or 2 years. So I don't think so. The excavation has stopped anywhere.
No, see, I mean, again, Anshul, I want you to, keep asking these questions. I want all the students to keep asking this question. And I think I should also
Ma'am, in Ramayana, the South people are means described as the Vanaras or the low quality people. In Mahabharata, the Kunti left 5 person to die in that Mahal, which was made by the Dravidian people.
Okay.
That the Surang. So why such in historical books such a discrimination about that Dravidian people we have?
Okay. So was it Shubham?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Shubham. So see, fine. First of all, okay, good that I'm able to see you. I hope you are able. Everybody is able to see you. Now, the questions that are put forward are again so complicated that I cannot answer it. First of all, I am not having enough knowledge about it to be able to answer all the questions, taking into consideration the different factors that are acting at the same time. So, yes.
Yeah, like this question was asked like South people are termed as
What is this?
this and this like low quality or something. I just want to mention the King Kali, who was from Mahabalipuram. He was the king of whole earth in the Satyuga, and I don't think so there is a discrimination on any side of this. He was the king, like he was the grandson of Prahlad, who was the
what is the timeline, Bharat?
He was in a Satyuga. He was starting from a Satyuga.
Can you tell what will be the timeline roughly?
It would be pre Ramayana because Satyuga
Pre-Ramayana. Yeah, because Ramayana was in the Treta.
Okay. So no, that is okay. See,
And
Bharat.
it is yes, ma'am. It is mentioned that King Kali hasn't died. He will rule again after the end of Kali Yuga.
Okay, definitely. Bharat, there are certain aspects that I cannot, address within the class because we are having a time limitation. And again, IKS, what the points that you are making, they are all very good points. And we will be having discussions, but possibly not today. Because, if we actually look at each myth or each points that are there in Mahabharata, Ramayana, or be it our Puranas, be it the Upanishad, be the all the information that is there in Vedas, it is impossible to decode everything and to explain everything within the span of 2-hour lecture or a 8-hour lecture or even say 20 hours lecture. It cannot only be lecture. But the way we want to, put forward is that the knowledge that we are trying to gather has to have a certain, what we learn from them. Like at present, the present age that we are in, how can we utilize them? Which are the knowledge, or everything is knowledge, right? But which part of it we should keep as record? Which part of it can we actually utilize now and use it and carry forward that yes, these are the major issues that is plaguing our civilizations at this point, and we really need this information to move ahead to offer a solution. So the the individual, our interest area is in Indian knowledge systems, and we will be trying to explore the basic queries that you are all having you're most welcome, and I, please don't stop asking questions. That is one request. And additionally, if I can answer something directly, I will. If I cannot answer something, then maybe we can take it forward to the next classes, or for an informal discussion when everybody will be here back on campus. We will take this forward. So, and that is the thing that I'm trying to emphasize, is that we are in the process. Nothing is stopping, nothing has been stopped. Things are going on. Good people are putting in their efforts to increase our knowledge about ourselves, our civilization, and we will be having even more information, and we will be disseminating that same information with you, and you will be disseminating them with your friends, with your family. Throughout the world, we will be disseminating this information, and we will be getting similar information from other corners of the world. So it's always, there should be a dialogue. You will be saying something, other people will also be saying something. So be ready to speak, but also be ready to listen, because then only we can move forward together. Okay. Now, regarding specific questions, is that yes, there are further excavations that are happening near the Indus Valley civilization. I got a query on the exploration that are happening in south, in so different areas. I answered in a way. I tried to address that whether yes, Dravidian culture is definitely predating Aryan culture. Now coming to the next point of whether Dravidian culture is, how is it linked with Indus Valley civilization? Because I could hear that this question or this issue was raised. So I will be addressing that. Yes.
One second, ma'am. Ma'am, three propositions are here to made. Dravidian people are become Indus Valley people. First proposition. Second proposition is that the Indus Valley people and Dravidian people are existed, but they are different. And third proposition is that the migration takes place from west, and they came as Aryan, invaded the Dravidian people, and pushed back them to south. So in these three proposition, what will be true, ma'am?
Okay, thank you. So again, I would say another point, that is, in such discussions, a person cannot say that, see, this is the truth, because we are getting new informations every day. If I say something is truth, then it is true under these present circumstances. So always keep this in mind when you are getting information, and try to differentiate between fact and between anything that is being fed to you as news. Be very careful. You see.
Hello, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt. Ma'am, will you be teaching anything new for today? Like some of us have to leave. We are having classes from 8 in the morning continuously.
Okay, Nikunj.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine, then I will be continuing. I will be just adding few more, I'm explaining few more slides, and then you can all go. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, good. So a part of it was the question that I will be addressing, as I told you, that whether the connection between, as they say, that Dravidian culture and Indus Valley culture. So works are still going around. A paper was recently has been published, which is working on the use of language. So their connection is explored by the use of language, and particularly I think it relates to the term which is related to the way the elephants. I think so, as far as I could remember. So as we could find elephants in definitely in Dravidian culture, we could find their pictures. We could also find their images elsewhere. So a linkage was established that whether it is how it is linked, or whether they used to utilize the similar, they used to pronounce it in a similar way. So this is, I think, can be explained in a far better way for somebody who is actually working on linguistics, and you can explore that. You can look at that paper. I think Anshul or Shubham can actually provide a link to that paper. If you are unable to, then I will be providing link to that paper, so you can look up. Now we are looking at the urban fabric of Mohenjo-daro. So if you look at the fabric, as I had explained, that look at the different sizes and the variations of different unit that is explored. It can be, I can further help you out if you are able to also look at the different sizes of the walls. So it is, you can see that it is not a very straightforward grid iron layout. The streets were definitely in grid iron layout, but this is particularly related to the northern residential area, which I had shown. I think I had shown a map, of a slightly larger scale of the entire Mohenjo-daro settlement. So this is related to the northern, the urban fabric which existed to the northeast of the entire Mohenjo-daro settlement. So from there, the interpretation is that there was a social hierarchy or within that area. We already know that there has to be a centralized administrative setup to be able to, who is or who actually laid down the rules that, this is the way buildings should be constructed. This should be the exact size of the bricks. This should be the system of measures, and this should be even the size of the seals were similar. So there was a centralized authority or an administrative, person who actually took care of this process of standardizations. But within that also, we could see that there was a hierarchy. Some buildings were one room, some buildings were two room, and we also, along with that, we had citadel area, which was at a slightly elevated position. If you look at the location of the Great Bath, then can you see at this picture at the bottom? This is basically a reconstructed view of what the city of Mohenjo-daro will look like. This is again the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro, and this is basically 7 meters. I think 12 meters by 7 meters was the size. So you can find out, or you can form the basic idea about this, the spatial quality that was there. And this was about 3 meters deep. What is very interesting at there is a very presence of a very elaborate system of drainage was there. And in some cases, researchers have mentioned that this also explained that throughout the Indus Valley civilization, they had found presence of, I should say, conscious forms of rainwater harvesting and of storing the rainwater for users. So why this entire, so from there, the interpretation that can be made that water was definitely an integral part of the social life. And rainwater harvesting was also explored. So this is the plan of the Great Bath, and this is actually the plan of the granary in Mohenjo-daro. Some of the buildings were basically 2-storied, and the entrance to these buildings were not from the main streets directly. So there were very few fenestrations or very few opening onto the main street. Some of the, one of the reason of this has been put out that the entire area was susceptible to flood. So therefore, as a method of flood control and to ensure that flood waters didn't enter into the buildings directly, so almost the entire layout was inward looking. So buildings were mostly focused on, courtyards. So there were courtyards were there and buildings where the entry was always from the courtyard. And the upper storage were usually the roof structure was flat roofed type of structures, and people used to reach the flat roofs by use of wooden staircases. And so this is about the basic. The drainage system was incorporated with along the main thoroughfares, and at least in Mohenjo-daro, the drain was let out into the nearest low-lying areas. Waterproofing was a common element, and usually in all residential buildings, or in most of the residential buildings, there was a well, and there were also toilets were also given almost in each residential building. And the larger, ramparts were there surrounding all the major cities. So though you can say that it was in a relative, peaceful area or peaceful, you can say time, but yet security was not, security, or at least a clear distinction of the urban area or the livable area was made clearly. So this is again the reconstruction was done following the way that's height standardizations, etc. So following that, this reconstruction has been done. This is for a picture of Mohenjo-daro only, and this is actually the entrance gate to Kharagpur. And if you have seen the entrance gate of, say, the gate of Astor, or the entrance pylons, you can see. So, any idea have you from? Can you say the structure? There is a similarity of this structure to other entrance pylons that we have found across the world. Can you mention a few of them? Okay, fine. So this is again the reconstructed picture of Dholavira, and Dholavira was actually was a port city, and it definitely had. You can look at the ramparts, and you can find that it's a fort actually. If you look at its structure or the pattern of settlement within the city, within the reconstructed view. So there was a lot of variation, and definitely what we can say that this type of settlement, a very, very careful urban planning was existing for planning of the settlement in relation to the existing water source, and also considering the variation in the rainfall that the area received, as well as the frequent floods that this area experienced from the Indus River basin. So I will be taking this up in later class. As you know, most of you are tired from the lectures from 8 a.m. So what are your questions? I will be addressing them. And along with Shankuda is also here. So if you have any question till this point, please say them.
Ma'am, can you elaborate a little bit on the trade relation that you had mentioned earlier in one of the, in terms of the development of the cities? I mean, was there any influence from outside, or was the city's design an influence for the Sumerian culture or the other cultures?
See, we can certainly say that a huge amount of the trade linkage was there, right? But it is difficult to say whether one aspect is being influenced by the Sumerians or whether the Sumerian method of construction is being influenced by Indus Valley. All we know that in both type of cities or in both civilizations, they used the same material for construction, and they use the same type of structure. So they were, trabeated structures were used. So you have columns and you have beams, you have straight roofs in that case. In Sumerian civilization, you have the place of worship, you have the ziggurats, but I think it was, I'm dealing in Sumerian civilization, but I think it is basically belonging to the Mesopotamian era. Right. So if some of you have this the timing of this ziggurat, and then please inform me about that. What is very strange is that if this, as you are talking about the influence area, we focus on our areas which will function as palace or which will function as place of worship. It is still not identified in Indus Valley civilization. So in say Vedic settlements, we have the Vedic or sacrificial altar, right? We have the very later when it developing, we are finding the mandala and how the entire we are actually getting more in-depth treatise on Vastu-shastra. So there, the way the depiction was done, the way the you can say each cell or each mandala, whether it was divided into 9 by 9 grid or whether it was divided into 16 by 16 grid. This is if you actually look at the city planning or the urban fabric, say at Babylon, you can understand it is the grid settlement, it is very stringent. So I will possibly, it's a good idea, I will be including one slide, then it will be easier for you to make the comparison. So in case of Babylon, if you look at the urban structure, you have the urban structure of Mohenjo-daro. You can see that Babylon, it was much more stringent. But again, the timeline is later to Mohenjo-daro, little bit. Okay, so in Sumer, so you can, there is no definitive answer on this, right? And you have to, again, we have to check the size of bricks that were used in Sumer. Then maybe we can have an idea about this this level of standardization that we have seen in this slide. Okay. Any other? Yes.
Ma'am, is there any remains of a marketplace or urban area in this civilization or trading area as some sort of that?
Market area, we have the public areas such we have the granaries. That is definitely, you can say.
And now we have these.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you mention again?
As now we have central business district CBD areas. So was there any evidence or any trace of that kind of
yes,
place in Indus civilization?
Instead of say CBD, we have the citadel area, which was mainly used for administrative purposes. We can understand that, but by looking at the size of the structures, as well as it was placed at a placed always at a higher elevation than the typical placement of say the residential areas. Okay, and depending on the type of the city, for example, in Mohenjo-daro, it is already on a, it is having variations in elevation. So there we have seen that the citadel is placed at a higher altitude or at a higher elevation. However, if you look at the reconstructed plan of Dholavira, the city is very different because its function is different. Okay. So based on the function, you can definitely say that yes, there was an administrative setup and they were locating it separately from the residential.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, we were talking about some of the things being waterproofed, in
Yes,
this
yes.
civilization. So in modern day, we use complex chemicals or things made of plastic for waterproofing. So what did they use for making things waterproof in such
Uh,
early times?
okay. I will be including little details about this in the slide later. Okay. But they were using some form of, I think, uh, tar
Ma'am,
only.
there are terracotta pipes also found in Indus Valley civilization.
Terracotta pipes are there, but for the larger drains. So terracotta pipe is for, say, taking the water, for the water inlet pipes are there, as well as for individual buildings the pipes are there. But for other, but the drainage system, it had major the drainage channels the way they were constructed. And waterproofing was mostly seen while near the Great Bath area. There the waterproofing would be found. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
But I will include a little bit on the material used for waterproofing. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So if there are no questions, then we will pick up from where we have stopped here today, and we will continue again in next week. So Shankuda, will you be giving both me and Professor Bhattacharya will be there, and I think Professor Joyshen will also join us for the next class. And but if you have any queries, please address those who are extremely tired. You can log out and
I have one question.
yes.
Ma'am, in during medieval period, like when Mughals were ruling India, at that time also they say that India was among the richest countries, although not as rich as like 2000 years ago, but it was still the one of the richest country. And but when we see our cities and towns, we don't find very good houses of where like common people were living. We have forts and like big palaces, but we don't see any like old buildings like we see in Europe or China, that they have those traditional homes which are like 500 years old, 600 years old. Even in my city there is a fort about 200 to 250 years old, which was built by some nizam, but we don't see houses. Like, why, being the one of the richest countries, Indians were living in huts and kacha houses.
So is the question related to the condition of settlement during Mughal era?
During medieval area, you can take it as like 1000 to 1600 or 1700, or maybe till the time Britishers arrived.
So there are two parts of this query. One part I will address. So that is when you are talking about the general life of the population. So richness, as in you can say the quality of life at that time. The quality of life, it's with respect to whether they were having adequate nutrition, what was the average life or lifespan at the time, and whether they were able to they were it's the system of the structure was that they were having good all around development. That was it. So if you take that into matter, and if you then go and look into the type of habitation that they were having, the type of variation that they are having, we are having an even larger variation now, right? Because somewhere in, I mean, midway between that, we have this, the division has increased a lot. The division both mentally, the differentiation that I am very different from my next neighbor. If I tell you that, if I tell everybody that everybody is getting good grades, possibly many of you will be feeling disheartened. That is the situation. goodness is now in comparison with what others are doing. So it's a part of it is, you know, I can address a part of it in a little bit in a you can say philosophical manner. I can explain that to you. So living in a mud house. So how do you imagine imagery of the mud house, or that is very different. If you look at a house which is made of mud, as Professor Bhattacharya said, that we have wattle and daub construction that is made of mud, right, Shankpada? But this imagery that it is somehow that an image of poverty, you first need to get out of that concept. Now, if I look at a house which is made of mud, where in an area which is having a lot of flooding, where there is not enough knowledge that how we used to construct in previous years, so that you know this we could actually cater to the disaster preparedness. So that knowledge is again what we will be exploring gradually. So mud hut is not something dilapidated. If you actually look at the house construction I will be giving you some examples. Say, or you can look up the works of architect Laurie Baker. Look that up. So those who have not specifically mud, but there are people who have worked with locally available material which have exist. I mean, which can the life can be extended of such buildings. It's not so a mud house. If you just say, it's not a symbol of poverty as such. It's the quality of construction and whether you have the actual know-how to construct with it. I can show you buildings which are RCC buildings, but which are falling down. Bridges are falling down, planned bridges. Why? Is that a symbol of poverty? We are having flyovers, right? That is a symbol of, say, advancement, development, but that infrastructure is somehow not working. Even during construction, it is not working. What is that a symbol of? I am trying to address your question. I do not know whether I'm able to address it, the question. But again, there are a lot of things which cannot be answered very simply in a sentence or say even in a paragraph. Okay.
Ma'am, Havelia in Rajasthan and Gujarat can be an example. Like if a structure is these, like many like lower class people stayed in Havelis in Rajasthan and Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh region.
Lower class, you mean low income group?
Yeah, low income group, like they stayed in unity or in a group, what we call like Sangh type, like some kabilas or their leaders, and they stayed in Havelis and some sort of grounds.
It is again what you're saying, that is living in a community as a part of community that is there. We so is
but,
it?
but my question was like we know that we were trading with Europe around like from like 3,000 years. We are trading with Europe, and at that from that time we were the richest. Like we were like richer than Europeans, as it is said in most of the texts that India was the golden bird and all. And even GDP predictions also show that India was richer. Even during Mughals time, we were about 20% of whole world, like in terms of GDP and all. And that sang when Britishers came. So at that time, like if you go to Europe, like in any mid-level town or city, you see buildings which are 500 to 600, sometimes 1,000 year old, properly planned, and like there was some planning of the town. I don't see any Indian city or town with like such level of planning. Okay, we can consider that Mohenjo-daro was much older city, but if we consider like for the past 1,000 years or 1,500 years, there's no settlement like which we can compare to that level, which like because we were richer, so we should also have some planning and like planned towns and cities. There are some cities in Rajasthan like Udaipur, which is actually a like planned city, Jaipur also. But even in Udaipur, the settlements and the housing is so like randomly people have made homes, the, except the main area. Every area is like just people came and they built their homes, whatever the way they wanted. So why didn't Indian people focus on planning and using better quality of homes at that time? That was my question. You said that okay, the material use was very good, so means kacha house, mud house is not a symbol of poverty, but planning should have been there, and the home should be constructed like that. And he also told that there are some havelis, but there are only very few havelis. Like most of the people were not living in those havelis.
Is it Anshul who's speaking?
Yes, ma'am.
Anshul, actually, the points that you are raising are very pertinent. But the thing is that you cannot, again, the points that you are talking about is it cannot be represented in the way that you are representing, because there are different parts to it, right? We will be exploring this later, I think, as an because we will be having classes both from on economy also and Arthashastra also. So the answer to this can only be, you will be getting the answer to it when you listen to all of us. So you look at the complete and you look at the whole perspective. Okay. So it's keep these questions. I think we will be addressing these issues gradually as you are, getting the other professors giving their lectures. So we will be ending today's session as of now, and I will be uploading the slides. I think we can upload the slides in after the lecture is over.
Yes, yes.
So
next class also we too will continue, and probably Professor Joyshin may also be there in our session. So mostly Professor Banerjee and Professor myself will continue the settlement analysis and the construction part of it. So I think we should say goodbye for today. Already it is 8:10. I do not have any morning class tomorrow, 8 o'clock, but students may have morning class. Anyway, it's a good discussion. It's a good discussion with Ansul and Bharat and all. And this discussion is required. These discussions is actually enrich ourselves also, our knowledge, our thought process also. And with your those doubts or whatever you may say, that will further enhance us to go for further quest and get those kind of answers. So as Professor Banerjee has said that your question is very valid, Ansul, in the regions of Rajasthan. There are certain things which a town planner may ask or answer it in better way, or maybe it is a kind of some other kind of a settlement analyst can tell you in other way. We will try to contact them, but I have some other ideas. We will discuss it in the next class. I mean,
Sir,
yes.
so one last thing, like I have heard about the village of Kuldhara in Jaisalmer, and all the people of those villages left the village in 18th century. Their houses are like settlement is very like in a planned way. Their house are like same house, same type of roads and bricks. The rest part, the demolished part is there, and that village is planned like Kuldhara.
Then yes, that is why what we feel is that there are some organic flow that came into the settlement and in the town planning systems. And as we know, the Mohenjo-daro and also Madam has told, and this particular picture also depicted that one, which is the grid iron pattern, which is very effective as a town planning point of view. Most of the European cities and all are nowadays grid iron. So that is one issue, and it has changed. I feel in the Rajasthan and all, it is the climatic things which actually play. The compactness, if it is high, no, then if the surface area is quite less, then it will be better. So it is a mutual shading and all. And you know, I have actually once I have visited the Gujarat in the sense the Ahmedabad, and there was a in morning there has the heritage walk. I have participated in that, and it is a totally the very the organic kind of a cluster. And if you go one point to the other point, there is a change of character. And we found out that this change of character is because of the era. I mean, maybe those buildings or those houses are constructed maybe 200, 300 years later. Something is maybe previous. And those are actually very interesting point. I mean, in the journey. So the Eastern people has maybe a affinity to go organic instead of going with a straight line or whatever. I don't know, but I'm kind of an engineer person, and I'm not at all a student of the planning. So I will actually, Ankhi, these are the very good question, I think.
Yes.
I will request both of them to actually send us your views, and then we will discuss with some town planner, settlement planning. I can invite some of them maybe with a pre-discussion and have their queries. And we may go a little bit here and there. At least me, whatever I can assume. Okay, then let us say goodbye to each of you, and please, both of you, please mail those your whatever your comment and all. I will, and Professor Banerjee, we will try to address through some town planner, city planning people. In fact, Professor Joyshen is a city planner, but discuss with sir and then discuss.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
should I first let me stop the recording?
Shangada, have you taken the attendance?
No. How to take